You're listening to the Chad Hasty Show on demand. Good for you. Now download the KFYO app and listen live weekday afternoons 5 to 7 p.m. Central.
Broadcasting from the great state of Texas, this is the Chad Hasty Show. News and views with a Lone Star perspective. You can sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Or call in at 1-800-687-0790. Now, here's Chad Hasty.
Good evening, Lubbock, Amarillo, Abilene, Wichita Falls, Midland, Odessa, Dallas, Fort Worth, down in Houston, over in El Paso, and anywhere else, inside or outside the great state of Texas, wherever you may be listening on this Wednesday evening. We welcome you in to the Chad Hasty Show. Glad to be with you today on this third day of January, as we are getting closer and closer to the Iowa caucus. We're getting more endorsements starting to come out. We're starting to see candidates speak their minds as to who they would like to see as president. Chris Christie is still out there being Chris Christie. We'll discuss some of his comments that he made today. Vivek Ramaswamy making some headlines as well today. And even Nikki Haley, yeah, she's still making some news out there. We're going to talk about Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis and, oh, yeah, that other guy. What's his name? Donald Trump, the guy who's going to be the nominee for the Republicans. We'll talk about them today here on the program. We've got some news to get to on that front. We've got some news regarding ERCOT as well today. We'll get into interesting story out of the Dallas Morning News about ERCOT possibly tying into a different grid. Yeah, how about that? 'Tis the season. For those of you in Lubbock who will be joining ERCOT, or actually you're already on ERCOT, but you'll be choosing a new energy provider beginning on Friday. Now some news coming out about ERCOT, maybe some future stabilization ways that they can move. And so we'll get into that here in just a little bit. We've also got, by the way, for those of you in Lubbock who you're going to be moving over to a new energy provider, we're going to be visiting with the folks from LP&L next week. Matt Rose with LP&L will be in studio next week to answer any questions you may have regarding how to choose a energy provider, when the deadline is to choose an energy provider. Of course, you can always check out our friends over at Abundance Energy. You can check them out. You hear me talking about them. They're in Lubbock. And so you can always check out abundanceenergy.com and get up to date news as far as they go. They're the only Lubbock energy provider, Lubbock born and bred energy provider that you'll be able to go with, and great friends of the program as well. So, we're going to have Matt Rose in next week on Wednesday, 5:35. So if you've got questions about how to go about this whole new world that you're going to be thrust into on Friday, choosing a new energy provider, and you haven't chosen one by next Wednesday, we'll kind of get you up to speed and get you some details and get your questions answered with Matt Rose coming up next week on Wednesday. He's going to be here in studio answering your questions. So just put that on the calendar for next week, and looking forward to that conversation with Matt Rose over at LP&L. I think a lot of people are going to look back on the days of LP&L, and they're going to go, things weren't too bad. Things really weren't too. LP&L, I think they got a bad rap. I think with all the utilities that were included on the LP&L bill, and also people not understanding that, yes, when summer rolls around here in West Texas, it gets hot and your air conditioner runs more than it does any other time of year. Thus, your bill's going to be more expensive. I mean, people forget about that. They forget about, maybe it's because they don't hear their AC. I don't know. Maybe they just ignore it. They just take it for granted that it's running and the house is nice and cool. But I see every year, and I guarantee you, you're going to see prices that may surprise you out there when it gets compared to the old LP&L prices of the day. Anyway, we'll get to that with Matt Rose next week. Just know competition is coming. You're going to have to choose a new energy provider in Lubbock if you're on LP&L. Now, if you're on spec, like I'm on spec, we don't have to choose anybody. We're good. We're set. We don't have to do anything at all. But if you're on LP&L, you're going to have to make a choice, and we'll get you some information on that next week. Like I said, we've got a lot to get into. We've got some statewide news to talk about. Hey, you know, in Dallas, they do the horse-drawn carriage rides throughout downtown Dallas. Well, now some council members are trying to get rid of the horse-drawn carriages because it's mean. It's mean to the horses. It's so mean. The horses look so abused and unhappy when they're out there walking around the streets of downtown Dallas. So we'll talk about that here on the program. Chris Christie also saying that he's refusing to drop out, and even if he's elected president, he's not going to pardon Donald Trump. No, not at all. We'll get into that story. Also, the question of the day, and we previewed this yesterday here on the show. Question for you on this one, because Trump's obviously going to be the nominee. He's going to be the nominee. We've known that for a long time. Let's just admit it. He's going to be the nominee. Who would you like to see as Trump's vice presidential selection? Now, there's a lot that goes into this. One, there's virtually no way Ron DeSantis is going to be Trump's VP pick. And I think he was kind of the popular guy for a lot of the only Trumpers. You know, if you could get a Trump DeSantis ticket, a lot of the only Trumpers wanted that one. Well, guess what? That's not going to happen. Nikki Haley's name is being thrown out there, but there's a lot of MAGA world who's against Nikki Haley. And Trump himself may not be too happy with Nikki Haley. So you have that to think about. Who would you like to see if it's not going to be anyone who's currently running for president, which most likely it won't be? Who would you like to see Trump pick as his vice presidential running mate? Who can, quote unquote, balance out Trump? Does Trump need to go for a female vice presidential pick? Does he need to pick somebody who maybe is not white? Is that what he needs to do? Does it really matter who Trump picks as his VP selection? Remember, this person's going to be basically off and running for president after about a year or so if Trump wins. So who would you like to legitimately see as Trump's VP pick? You can text in on 806-680-2790. And when you do text in, you give us a little bit of a reason why. Give us a little bit of a reason why you think that person is who Trump needs to go with. And leave us your name and where you're listening from whenever you do text in. So Trump's VP pick, who does it need to be? You can text in 806-680-2790. You can also call in at 1-800-687-0790. That's 1-800-687-0790. The governor of South Dakota, Kristi Noem, she's, of course, out there campaigning for Donald Trump. She's added her name to the list of people who that does not want Nikki Haley as VP. The South Dakota governor, Kristi Noem, said choosing a Republican presidential candidate, Nikki Haley, as vice president would be a mistake for Donald Trump. The Republican governor told Newsmax that if Trump chose the former South Carolina governor, she would tell him she disagrees. Quote, then again, I would support the ticket because he's still the president, and the president still makes the decisions, Noem said. On Monday, former Trump aide Steve Bannon spoke out against Haley as VP, calling her a viper that would cause a big fight among the MAGA base. I think that may be true. Maybe. I think there would be a little bit of it, but I think people would vote for Trump no matter what. I think that the MAGA base, would go and vote for Trump because they're going to vote for Trump no matter what. You're not going to get people with everything that Trump has gone through, with all the news headlines that's been out there about Donald Trump. I don't think you have to worry about splintering the MAGA base right now. Not with a vice presidential pick. I think the MAGA base that's out there, they're going to vote for Trump no matter who he picks. He could maybe even pick Gavin Newsom. And the MAGA base would say, well, that doesn't make any sense, but hell, at least we get Trump. By the way, I don't think he's going to pick Gavin Newsom. I'm just throwing it out there that Trump could pretty much pick anybody. And the MAGA base would say, well, as long as we get Trump, we're pretty happy with that. So I see where Bannon is kind of coming from here, but I don't think it's that big of a... I think Nikki Haley is more likely to sabotage Trump than it is to fracture any kind of MAGA base out there. 1-800-687-0790. You can send in your thoughts. The text line also open. The governor of South Dakota, who, by the way, is being mentioned by quite a few people as a possible VP pick, said, quote, I don't know which Nikki Haley is going to show up every day. She's a different person, depending on whatever works for her political agenda. Noam said of Haley, former U.S. ambassador to the UN. She went on to call Trump a, quote, normal human being who tells the truth, gets up every day fighting for people. He has no reason to do this job other than he truly believes in America. Trump remains the front runner for the Republican nomination, hasn't indicated whom he's leaning towards for vice president. Noam and Trump will be speaking at a campaign rally in Iowa on Wednesday. And Trump is, by the way, surging in Iowa this evening. 806-680-2790. That's the text line. The phone line's open at 1-800-687-0790. That's where Nick is. That's the first voice you hear from when you dial in. He's got a brand new sweater. Sweater day number 2. Sweater day number 2 for Nick, a new Christmas sweater that he has on. And Nick, it looks, you're going back to the dull, that sounds bad, the dull tones of the kind of gray, white, cream type of color there. Not a lot of Bill Cosby flash in your sweater today. Like you did yesterday with the nice blue. Today you're toning it down just a little bit. Good to see. When we come back, your phone calls, your text messages, and much more.
Sometimes I'm right, and I can be wrong. My own beliefs are in my song.
The Chad Hasty Show can be heard all over West Texas, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Tune in on News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO in Lubbock, News Talk 940 in Amarillo, News Talk 94.7 and 1470 KYYW in Abilene, and in Wichita Falls on News Talk 96.3 and 1290. The Chad Hasty Show. Make it a part of your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
Coming up on the Thursday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, 11 days out from the Iowa caucuses, we'll look at the latest poll numbers and who's surging, who's dropping, what the main narratives are. Plus, Biden is still the Democrat nominee. What do the numbers tell us about the likelihood of this continuing to be the case? We will break down that and much more on the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, tomorrow morning at 11.
Travis, Sean Hannity, and Chad Hasty. Weekdays on News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO.
All right, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Happy Wednesday. You can send in your thoughts on the text line. Lots of nominees coming in who they'd like to see Trump pick as VP. You got a couple of Tucker Carlsons in there as a possible selection. Linda says Tucker for VP is an outsider, doesn't owe anybody anything. He's not a politician. He's a businessman and a brilliant mind. If Trump is going to select a woman, it should be Kristi Noem of South Dakota. Thank you, Linda. Another texture, Trump needs to bring on a policy horse to make him mess with the government programs that need to go. And from Mike in Abilene, let's see, some texture. Victor in Lubbock, I think he means Stefanik here, gives more to the East Coast Republican votes. Haley's a no-go. She's twisted and turned. I don't want her destroying what Trump rebuilds. Let's see. Another texter. Listener, unknown comic. Parts unknown. And either Noam, Jim Jordan, Ben Carson, Vivek, or Condoleezza Rice. All good teammates. Let's see. Don Jr. or Laura Trump would be loyal to his policies. Well, that would be an awkward dinner if they weren't loyal to the policies. And from Les Farwell, another text coming in. I like Tim Scott, but I'm wondering if it's Abbott. Another texter saying might as well be Abbott. He does not put up with crap. I don't know about that. Let's see, is Nick's sweater more of a Mr. Rogers neighborhood type? No, it's more of just a regular sweater today. The Mr. Rogers look, that was yesterday. A little bit of a Mr. Rogers look yesterday. It's a classic look. Another texter, Mitchell and Abilene, I think you should shake it up. Pick Tulsi Gabbard. Another texter, Kristi Noem, Carrie Lake, winner to be determined by bathing suit contest. That would be one way to pick. That's true. Let's see, Elon Musk for VP. That from Wes. That would be interesting. That would shake some things up. That's for sure. Another texter said Ted Cruz for Attorney General. Enough said. Yeah, we've talked about this before, more so from the Supreme Court style or Supreme Court point of view. I think Ted Cruz would be an excellent Supreme Court nominee and justice, and I think he'd be fantastic at the U.S. Supreme Court, but he wants to be president. He really wants to be president. I don't even think that he would want to be Attorney General. I think he's fine. He's good being senator right now. He's happy with that, but make no mistake, Ted Cruz is running in 2028. He's going to be running for presidency the next go around. It's going to happen. He didn't run against Trump. He was smart. He was very smart, knew that Trump was going to get the nomination. Didn't pull the trigger this go around. He'll do it next time, though. And you know, he may be a better candidate. One thing Ted Cruz has to get away from. Well, there are a couple of things, but one big one right now. He's got to stop being the curse. For the sports fans out there, you know what I'm talking about. Anytime Ted Cruz shows up at a sporting event wearing your team's attire, it's not a good thing. I don't know what his record is, but it's bad. Like he showed up at the Sugar Bowl. He showed up at the Sugar Bowl wearing burnt orange, and it was at that point people were taking pictures of Ted Cruz wearing burnt orange away. They went, oh boy, here we go. It's over. UT's going to lose. It's all over. They showed up at the Astros Rangers games. Instead of just wearing go state of Texas, go baseball. Guess who he was rooting for? That's right, the Houston Astros. Guess who didn't win the World Series this year? The Houston Astros. So I'm telling you, it's not good when Ted Cruz shows up to one of your sporting events. So that's something he's going to have to improve on if he wants to win the presidency. Just one thing that he has to improve on. Let's see. Paul weighed in. I just found out my house in Colorado can have power turned on without my permission. There's squatters in it now. Well, that's no good. You got to get rid of the squatters. I've heard of power being turned off without your permission. And I'm sure if they have the ability to turn off your power, they probably have the ability to turn on your power as well. Of course, heard from you've heard from some people who are the companies out there, they can turn it off real quick. Turning it back on, that could take a day or two. That could take a day or two. Turning it off, they can be real quick about that. Who do you want to see Trump pick as his VP? So far, nobody really standing out. We had a couple of Abbotts, a couple of Tim Scotts, a couple of Gnomes in there, a couple of Tuckers, but I don't see Tucker leaving his new gig just yet. Who would you like to see Trump pick as his VP? We'll be right back on the Chad Hasty Show.
Call in to the Chad Hasty Show at 1-800-687-0790. The Chad Hasty Show, broadcasting on the Texas Town Square Media Network.
Mr. Rogers said, look for the helpers. You can always find people who are helping. Thank you to all the first responders who put their lives in danger to help us when my brothers and sisters need them. We look out for the helpers because they look out for us. Thank you, first responders!
Help us help first responders in your community today. Go to firstrcf.org to learn more.
We live Texas. We breathe Texas. The landmarks, the swagger, and the lore make us who we are. We devour the tastes and the smells of our state. You just might say there's something in the air. So do your part to help protect it. Keep your tires at the correct pressure and avoid idling at drive-thrus. Both help reduce emissions. For tips, visit drivecleantexas.org. Drive Clean Texas. Live and breathe it. Brought to you by TxDOT.
News and talk of West Texas. News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO. Don't you forget about Chad at Chad Hasty Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and on your radio. Now back to the Chad Hasty Show.
Back on the Chad Hasty Show. Appreciate you being out there today. The Democrats and the news media they're going a little nuts over this Hobbit president who had to resign after being caught with, plagiarizing and lying about her resume, basically. And they've come out with a few different, at least the Associated Press and a few others have come out with a few different, very odd stories about conservatives and how this is all a made up deal. About the outrage is all made up out there. Now, the Associated Press, they wrote a story with their headline being the Harvard president's resignation highlights a new conservative weapon against colleges: plagiarism. Now, maybe I'm old-fashioned. I don't know. Well, let's bring in Nick. Nick is a fairly recent graduate of Texas Tech University.
I am.
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Does Texas Tech, any of your professors over at Texas Tech, do they have any type of policy regarding plagiarism?
Now, it's been a while.
Yeah.
Since I've been. But I think I do remember. We get this fancy large packet of papers called the syllabus.
Oh.
And in that syllabus,
right,
there's a very large section
yes.
of academic integrity,
Ooh.
which contains a section on plagiarism. So every single class we have, we are informed of the plagiarism policy for not only the class,
yeah,
but for Texas Tech University.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Let's say you were to have 47 instances of plagiarism on your record at Texas Tech University. Would the university have said anything to you as a student? Would they have asked you to possibly leave? Would you have gotten in any trouble whatsoever as a student?
As a student,
yes.
I believe it's one strike.
Okay.
Maybe two. I think you get a slap on the wrist the first time.
Yeah.
And you get a 0 on what you turned in.
Okay. Now,
if you do it again, I've never run into it, but I think you're out.
Now,
if you do it twice.
Would you have viewed that as a conservative weapon against you, or just a academic standard?
I would view this as the standard for colleges and universities in America. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So the Harvard president, the one who resigned, had 47 instances of plagiarism. 47. In which these were records that she turned over showing why she deserved to get the job as Harvard's president. Now, overall, her background, and this is something that they point out over at Breitbart, that she has an unimpressive scholastic career anyway. But she has 47 instances, according to the New York Times themselves, 47 instances where she lifted other people's work and claimed that it was her own work in the world of academia. And somehow bringing this up and reporting this is now a weapon because she's black. And that's really what they want to put in there, is because she's black. That's why it doesn't matter if she committed plagiarism. It doesn't matter if she lied about her history. It doesn't matter if she has no problem with students chanting death to the Jews on the campus. That's okay because she fits a narrative of the news media. Folks, this is a very dangerous position. We're basically saying, the news media is basically stating that it doesn't matter what your qualifications are. It doesn't matter what's right or wrong. It doesn't matter if what you're doing for a student at Harvard would be thrown out if they had 47 instances of plagiarism. They'd be thrown out. What the news media is wanting to do, and where we are just as a society, is that it doesn't matter how honest you are. It doesn't matter what your character is. It doesn't matter where any of that is. As long as you fit the narrative and as long as you fill the role out of central casting, that's all that really matters. As long as you fit the agenda, you can do whatever the hell you want to do. You don't actually have to be qualified. You don't have to be qualified for that position. As long as you fit the agenda, that's all that matters. As long as you fit into the DEI universe, that's all that matters. As long as you vote for the Democrats, that's all that matters. Who cares if you lift other people's work and claim it's your own? It doesn't matter. Not to the Democrats. Now, if this were a white conservative male. If this were the president of Texas Tech University, their head would be offered on the silver plate pretty quickly. They would be removed very quickly. But even today, you have the press defending her, saying, "Oh, this is a big threat." They wrote this. The AP did. The downfall of Harvard's president has elevated the threat of unearthing plagiarism, a cardinal sin in academia, as a possible new weapon in conservative attacks on higher education. It has nothing to do with conservatism. Has nothing to do. I saw someone who wrote earlier, well, why don't we go through and see if all college presidents and university presidents have plagiarized? Okay, go ahead. I don't know of anyone who would have a problem with that. You want to do it? Fine. It has to do with what's right and wrong. It's not conservatives' fault that she decided to lie about her resume. Conservatives didn't make her lie. That was her. Now, the AP also went in a different direction when they were writing about a conservative activist. Christopher Rufo, a conservative activist who helped orchestrate this effort, they say. He celebrated her departure as a win in his campaign against elite institutions of higher education. On X, formerly known as Twitter, he wrote "scalped," as if gay was a trophy of violence, invoking a gruesome practice taken up by white colonists who sought to eradicate Native Americans. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Hang on. Let's read that last line one more time here about scalping and who did the scalping. Invoking a gruesome practice taken up by white colonists who sought to eradicate Native Americans. I believe the Indians scalped quite a few people. I'm sorry, Native Americans. I'm pretty sure that's well documented throughout history. But instead, the Associated Press wants you to think that it was white people, and only white people, going around scalping folks. Which I believe, if you were to look at any book on history dating back to dealing with the Native Americans and Indians, you would see that Indians did their fair share of scalping. But according to the AP, it's all the white people. See, the white people, they got this woman fired. The white people going through and scalping other people, and the white people are the reason why she plagiarized. You see, if the white people hadn't been so mean to her in the past, she wouldn't have had to plagiarize all of her work. This is how insane we are as a nation, and it's just getting worse. And it's not going to get better anytime soon. It's not going to get any better anytime. I don't care who's elected in November. It's not going to get better anytime soon. We can get on a better path. We can start to maybe take a turn. But folks, let me tell you something. Even if Trump wins, the left of this nation, they're going to freak out. They're going to lose it. You better be prepared for that. You better be prepared for that, because this idea of celebrating mediocrity, this idea of celebrating people who and lifting people up who should not, who haven't worked for it, who haven't earned it, that's not going away just if Trump wins. In fact, America will be even more racist than ever before. That's what it'll be deemed. That's what the New York Times and the Associated Press and CNN and MSNBC, we will be more racist, more bigoted than ever before if Trump wins. Just get ready for it. The left, they're not going to go away. They're not going to go silently into the night. if Trump wins this thing. Not going to happen. 806-680-2790. One texter saying they should pull her doctorate. Oh, she's going to make $1 million. I think her salaries are around $1 million a year. She's still going to make that. She's still on staff at Harvard. She's just not the president. She's going to make a ton of money, and then she'll probably end up with a job on CNN or MSNBC, commenting on racism in America and plagiarism. And at some point, I'm sure this will come out. Well, if Joe Biden, white guy, can be accused multiple times of plagiarism and can still be president, why can't she be the president of Harvard? Is it because she's a black woman? I'm sure that'll come out at some point. 806-680-2790. When we come back, we'll take your phone calls, your text messages as well.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
Coming up on the Thursday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, 11 days out from the Iowa caucuses, we'll look at the latest poll numbers and who's surging, who's dropping, what the main narratives are. Plus, Biden is still the Democrat nominee. What do the numbers tell us about the likelihood of this continuing to be the case? We will break down that and much more on the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, tomorrow morning at 11.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. Veterans deserve to know about the best services available to them. VA's new radio outreach page is a prime source for that information. The page, news.va.gov/outreach/radio, houses public service announcements that educate veterans on a cross-section of topics. That's news.va.gov/outreach/radio.
All right, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. The Justice Department suing Texas over that just crazy law that would let police arrest migrants who enter the U.S. illegally. The Justice Department today suing Texas over the new law that would allow police to arrest migrants who enter the U.S. illegally, taking Republican Governor Greg Abbott to court again over his escalating response to border crossers arriving from Mexico. The lawsuit draws Texas into another clash over immigration at a time when New York and Chicago pushing back on buses and planes carrying migrants sent by Abbott to Democrat-led cities nationwide. Now, wait a minute. These aren't Democrat-led cities. Well, they are. But these are places that have said they would welcome illegal immigrants. These are cities that pass laws saying, come here, you'll be okay. The law that Abbott signed last month poses a broader and bigger challenge to the U.S. government's authority over immigration, in addition to allowing police anywhere in Texas to arrest migrants on charges of illegal entry. Local judges could also order migrants to leave the country. Law is set to take effect in March. Lawsuit was filed in Austin. Civil rights organizations and officials in El Paso County filed a lawsuit last month that similarly described the new law as unconstitutional overreach. On Wednesday, House Speaker Mike Johnson and around 60 fellow Republicans visited the Texas border city of Eagle Pass, which has been at the center of Abbott's $10 million border initiative known as Operation Lone Star. Johnson suggested he could use a looming government funding deadline as further leverage for hard-line border policies. Again, Joe Biden's done nothing. Abbott's trying something. Texas trying something. And the Department of Justice getting in the way. The federal government getting in the way of Texas trying to defend its own borders. Now, I've heard some of the concerns about this. I've heard some of the concerns that, everyday citizens could be swept up and I guess kind of detained, but stopped and asked about their immigration status and asked to hand over information when they're doing nothing wrong. But I don't believe that's how this will be used. I believe this will be used in other ways. You're already being stopped by police for one reason or the other. In any case, it does make sense that you should be able to be arrested by local law enforcement for being in the country illegally, since it's illegal to be here illegally. When we come back, we've got a number of you who have weighed in on the text line. We'll get to your text messages. You can text in, as always, at 806-680-2790. We'll also have tickets to give away for the Gun and Blade Show coming up in the next hour, so stay tuned for that. We'll be right back.
The Chad Hasty Show, a presentation of the Texas Town Square Media Network. The views and opinions expressed during the Chad Hasty Show are not necessarily the views of this station staff, management, advertisers, or Town Square Media. Broadcasting from the great state of Texas, this is the Chad Hasty Show. News and views with a Lone Star perspective. You can sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790. That's 806-680-2790. Or call in at 1-800-687-0790. Now, here's Chad Hasty.
All right, welcome back. Chad Hasty Show, final hour of the program. You can text in 806-680-2790. Asking you today who you think Trump should pick for his VP selection. Who do you want it to be? Who do you want Trump's running mate to be? So far, no Mike Pence's out there. A few Greg Abbotts. Rob and Abilene weighing in. Trump VP pick. Who can ever pull the most non-Trump voters over to their ticket? Yeah, that's the traditional way of thinking. Let's see, another texter. Nick could have claimed that he was Eskimo heritage. Hence his penchant for all the year-long sweater wearing. They would have given him a pass on the plagiarism. That's true. That's true. That could be it. Let's see, another texter. Listener Jim, listener Jim was finishing up a graduate degree in 2000, spring 2001. Everything was done as teams. I had two. Let's see. I'm not sure where he was going with that. I had two turkeys from Turkey that copied and okay. Had two turkeys from Turkey that copied and pasted everything, no citations. I took it as an insult to my legit work, as you should. Another texture from Wes. When I worked in radio video lab at San Angelo State University, saw a student who copy-pasted his entire paper on the history of broadcasting, scored it off campus, and banned from the Texas University system. Again, just about anywhere, any student would absolutely be removed from a university if they had one or two proven claims against them of plagiarism. Now throw in 47, and that's the Harvard president. Eight 806-680-2790. The woman behind the 1619 project already claimed the departure of Harvard's president was due to racism. Oh, a lot of folks have. A lot of folks on the left have said it's because of racism and conservative pouncing Take responsibility. Say, yes, she screwed up. She screwed up. She lied about her work. She lied about her academic career. And move on. But instead, no, we gotta defend her. We gotta defend her no matter what. Story from the Dallas Morning News. It's interesting here. Plan to link Texas ERCOT electric grid to southeastern U.S. states in the works. Texans have proudly proclaimed that our state electricity grid run by ERCOT did not need or want to connect to the national grids. Quietly, though, behind the scenes, state regulators have worked for more than a decade with Pattern Energy, a private company, to create the Southern Spirit transmission. The goal is a 400-mile transmission line from Texas-Louisiana border through Louisiana and into Mississippi to connect with grids in the southeastern United States. Power could flow in or out of Texas depending on the need. Federal regulators would have no jurisdiction over the project because of the way it's set up. Also, electricity flow would be direct current, not the usual alternating current. According to the Dallas Morning News, Garland Power and Light, part of the plan because the lines would connect to Texas in a partnership with Garland. Garland announced its participation back in 2011. The utility would operate a substation on the Texas border and 30 miles of transmission lines leading to it. The projected schedule shows construction could start in 2026 and end by 2029. Right-of-way work is being done right now. The project, groundbreaking one, if pieces fall into place, it received little public attention. According to the latest issue of the Red River Parish Journal, leaders in Northwest Louisiana community heard from a representative of Pattern asking for public support of 21 miles of transmission lines across the parish. So it's that's one story out of the Dallas Morning News, which would link ERCOT to at least a couple of other states, Louisiana, Mississippi, all the way to the Mississippi-Alabama border. And something to be on the lookout for in the near future. They say it won't cost taxpayers anything. We'll see about that. The real need is to bulk up our energy plans here in Texas and to get away from only going green, which is not really helping anybody. 806-680-2790. Another story out of the Dallas Morning News. This one's just absolutely crazy. Having to deal with the horse-drawn carriage rides in Dallas. So you can't have anything fun. You can't, because there's always going to be some group out there offended by something. Horse-drawn carriage rides throughout downtown Dallas and other parts of the city could soon end if some elected officials and animal rights activists get their way against the owner of the city's only permitted carriage company. City council members have begun publicly discussing a possible ban on horse-powered carriage rides in early December. We'll continue to deliberate this year. A ban would put Dallas among the largest cities in the nation to outlaw the rides, joining Chicago, Salt Lake City, and Biloxi, Mississippi. San Antonio, Philadelphia, and New York City, among other cities where officials have recently proposed similar bans. The sight of a carriage horse collapsing on a Manhattan street back in August of 2022, being hosed by police officers to cool down renewed calls for reforms in New York. Dallas City Council member Adam Bazaldu, who chairs the council's Quality of Life Committee, said he supports an overall ban on horse-drawn carriages, citing concerns about street safety and the treatment of the horses. Well, I don't think we should have a place for horses on our streets. He told the Dallas Morning News, I think it's inhumane for the animal. I think it's overall dangerous for us having safer streets. He said as the committee took up the issue after hearing concerns from residents, acknowledged that even if City Council ultimately adopts the ban, it's unclear how effectively Dallas could enforce it. He said he believes some carriages are operating without city-approved permits. Others say an outright ban in Dallas would be too harsh and not reflective of working conditions for the animals in the city. They say horse carriage rides have been in the Dallas-Fort Worth area since at least the 1980s. Probably longer than that. Probably a little bit long. Horses have been used for transportation for a very long time. They're fine. Brian High, the owner of North Star Carriage, disputed claims that his horses are mistreated. He pointed to a series of city rules operators have to follow to ensure equine safety, like 8-hour work limits and at least 12 hours of rest for the horses. They don't work when the temperature is above 99 degrees, and mandatory water breaks at least every 2 hours and examinations at least once every 6 months by a licensed veterinarian. They say a ban would obviously put them out of business. Of course it would. But again, the left, they're never happy. They got to take away everything. Everything that's a little bit fun for people. People enjoy it. Especially around Christmas time. The horse-drawn carriages being used in weddings. Said his business takes part in around 300 engagements a year and 150 weddings. Said people also hire the carriages for funerals, along with making reservations and walk-up appointments in different areas of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But somebody has to complain. Oh, they're worried about the animals. Oh, the poor horses. How could the horses ever work so hard? I mean, you got two horses here having to pull a carriage. Oh, it's terrible. 806-680-2790. Hey, we've got some family 4-pack of tickets to give away to the Gun and Blade Show. Gun and Blade Show happening here in Lubbock on Saturday and Sunday. And I think we've got, let's do 3. Let's give away 3. The first 3 people to call in at 1-800-687-0790. That's 1-800-687-0790 or 806-699-5396. First 3 people who give us a call will get you hooked up with a family 4-pack of tickets to the Gun and Blade Show happening this weekend over at the Lubbock Memorial Civic Center. We'll actually be visiting with Kim Sansom right at the end of the show today about what to expect at the Gun and Blade Show. So stay tuned for that. As we go to break, first 3 people to give us a call, we'll get you hooked up with a family 4-pack of tickets to the Gun and Blade Show this Saturday and Sunday here in Lubbock. We'll be right back.
The Chad Hasty Show can be heard all over West Texas, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m. Tune in on News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO in Lubbock, News Talk 940 in Amarillo, News Talk 94.7 and 1470 KYYW in Abilene, and in Wichita Falls on News Talk 96.3 and 1290. The Chad Hasty Show. Make it a part of your drive home, weekdays from 5 to 7 p.m.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
Coming up on the Thursday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, 11 days out from the Iowa caucuses, we'll look at the latest poll numbers and who's surging, who's dropping, what the main narratives are. Plus, Biden is still the Democrat nominee. What do the numbers tell us about the likelihood of this continuing to be the case? We will break down that and much more on the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, tomorrow morning at 11.
Buck Sexton and Sean Hannity, weekdays on KFYO.
back on the Chad HD Show. Appreciate you being out there. Nikki Haley surpassing Ron DeSantis in the national GOP polling average. Really doesn't matter because you know who's in front. GOP presidential candidate Nikki Haley surpassed Florida Governor Ron DeSantis in the 538 national polling average for the first time in the 2024 campaign. A senior elections analyst for the polling and analysis website announced Haley's move in second place Tuesday on X, formerly known as Twitter, noted caveats about the confidence interval polls and said multiple ways that exist to calculate a polling average. Still, 538's average as the former UN ambassador ahead. Marks the first time in the 2024 election that Haley has come in second in the polls average. Also highlights her rise in the polls that has taken over in the last few months. Again, Trump is still very, very high. DeSantis has held second place in the GOP field through most of the race. At one time was, quote unquote, closely behind Trump for the lead. But he has dropped in over the months and from above 30% nationally to low double digits. Trump's still the front runner, the clear front runner, holding a 50-point lead in the 538 national average. This is, again, why I think it's funny. I think it's funny. Because every article, it'll start this way about how Nikki Haley is rising. Nikki Haley's up there. And then you get about 4 or 5 paragraphs in, and then they're like, well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a fantasy world, but, you know, Trump is still leading by 50 points over Nikki Haley. Oh, okay. Well, there you go. That's the real story. Haley and DeSantis are set to face off in a debate that really nobody will watch, hosted by CNN in Iowa next week ahead of the Hawkeye State's January 15th caucuses. Trump will skip the debate and instead participate in a town hall hosted by Fox News. Which one do you think most people will watch? They'll watch where Trump is at. Won't be a debate. It'll be a town hall. It'll be probably a pretty good town hall. And it wouldn't surprise me if some of the accusations that have been thrown out there by Nikki Haley and DeSantis and others are going to be brought up to Trump in this town hall meeting. See, texter, has anyone asked if the Harvard professor should have her PhD revoked due to plagiarism? Seems she's still benefiting from the dishonesty. Well, she should have it revoked. She should be thrown out of the university altogether, but she's not going to be. Another texter asking, where do they think the term horsepower came from? Another texter, llama-drawn carriages. Well, that could get messy. I guess the horse ones do too. Another texter, if horses are working animals, they will expend more energy, causing the need to consume more food, resulting in more methane gas emissions. We have to protect the environment. Let's see. No Trump debate. He's not getting my vote. Now, do you mean in the primary or do you mean in the general election where he's going to be the nominee? Elizabeth in Lubbock weighing in. I want to weigh in on 2 things. First, my choice for vice presidential running mate for Trump. I don't think we know enough yet to make a decision. Don't want Abbott. Don't want any of the current second chairs, although I admit I don't know everything about them. Tim Scott seems like a reasonable choice. I don't know enough exactly to say that for sure. I think it's going to be somebody who comes out of obscurity. We shall see. She writes, as a former college professor, I have something to say about plagiarism. It's almost impossible to stop it now with the ease of cut and paste and the mercenaries that will write paper for someone. It's bad enough. It's been pervasive for the last 18 to 30 years, well, with AI now, too. AI is, I mean, my goodness. That's going to be, that's going to give even more rise to it. She goes on to say the more persnickety part is the artificial intelligence apps that'll write stuff for you. I taught biology, also considered that I was an English teacher. Plagiarism is a bad thing. It's dishonest. It robs the student of the learning experience, the thinking process. Just between you and me, I'm kind of glad I don't have to worry about it anymore because I don't know what the solution is. Enjoy the rest of your evening. You know, for the students are always going to try and cut corners. I'll put it that way. If a student can cut a corner, then they're going to find ways to do it. Not every student's going to plagiarize, but students overall, people overall, are going to find ways to get things done a little bit easier. But it goes back to having honesty. It goes back to it goes back to so many things that we have that are ills of society. It really goes back to the home, doesn't it? If you were raised right, if you were raised the right way, you probably find plagiarism a lot. Well, it is theft, but you probably look at it the same way you would look at theft, as disgusting. Again, we're getting away from, and I brought this up earlier, pardon me, we're getting away from the idea in our country where you want to be rewarded for the hard work that you put in. People want it easy. They want all the rewards, but they don't want to actually work for it. They don't care about integrity. They don't care about being an example. People just want the easy way out. They want the fame. That's why you have so many people want to be stupid Instagram influencers. They want to get rich. They want to be famous and not do anything for it, other than take pictures and post them. Working hard, that's taking a backseat for a lot of people. For a lot of society, it's taking a backseat. It's not good. Not good for our nation. We'll be right back.
The Chad Hasty Show, weekdays 5 to 7 p.m. Sound off during the show by sending Chad a text at 806-680-2790. Today's markets from the Texas Department of Ag.
Well, howdy, neighbors. Texas feeder catalogs are still closed for the holidays. Cattle futures were mixed. February live cattle futures down 7 cents. Closed at $171.85. January feeder cattle futures up 65, closed at 226.07. March cotton futures up a point, closed at 80.93. March wheat futures down 8 cents. Closed at $6.21 a bushel. March corn up a couple of pennies to close at $4.65. January soybean futures down a nickel, closed at $12.69 a bushel. And January soybean meal futures up $2 and a dime, closed at $381 a ton. December Class B milk futures down a penny, closed at $16.07 a hundred. February crude oil futures up $2.32, closed at $72.70 per barrel, and the Dow Jones is down 284 points, closing at 37,430. And that's a market roundup from the Texas Department of Agriculture. I'm your commissioner, Sid Miller. Sold. And remember, friends, Texas agriculture matters.
The news and talk of West Texas. News Talk 95.1 and 790 KFYO. You're listening to The Chad Hasty Show.
All right, welcome back to the Chad Hasty Show. Appreciate you being out there. And let's see, we've got a few texts that have been coming in. Let's see, one for Huckabee as vice presidential running mate. Yeah, I saw a story the other day ranked Sarah Huckabee Sanders as a possible candidate for Trump to pick. She would be. I don't know if she'd want it right now. She's doing a pretty good job in Arkansas, it seems. USA Today went through, asked Trump supporters to name their choice for the number 2 spot. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who finished first at 14%. USA Today went on to say, sorry, folks, that's almost certainly not going to happen, given the fractured relations between the two after DeSantis emerged for the first time as the most likely alternative to Trump. Former president rewarded DeSantis with the nickname DeSanctimonious. Then there's Ramaswamy, volunteered by 10%. The entrepreneur, political newcomer, has done the most of any in the field to emulate and defend Trump in the GOP debates. Former presidents declined to join. Most recently has vowed to remove his name from any state ballot that bumps Trump. Unlike the first two, Ramaswamy is not under the not impossible. Note that if elected, he wouldn't be the first Asian American to serve as vice president. That status belongs to the current office holder, Kamala Harris. Trump seems unlikely to pick Ramaswamy, but don't rule it out. I mean, I guess it's always possible. USA Today says another pick that doesn't seem too impossible is Nikki Haley, former South Carolina governor appointed by Trump as UN ambassador. I think it's pretty impossible at this point. But Tucker Carlson had about 1% of the vote among Trump supporters. And Governor Kristi Noem, South Dakota, was also at about 1%. Nobody else really scratched the surface in this poll conducted by USA Today. Another texter saying, yes, Sarah Sanders is VP. Elizabeth Wayne back in on the text line. Chad, you're spot on. I would never dream of plagiarizing personally, simply talking about people who are inclined to do it in the first place. You're absolutely right. Gets back to honesty and integrity, what they learn at home. Well done. It's honesty, integrity. These are things that they're not really taught a lot anymore. At least it seems they're not taught as enforced as much as they used to be. Which again, this gets back to our society. One of the societal ills that we have when it comes to the lack of integrity, the lack of honesty. Proposing that anything goes. You heard about this attacker at the White House who had a machete, illegal immigrant who had already been released by the Biden administration. And then there's video going around. If you follow me on X, I retweeted it a little bit earlier. Shows a judge in I believe it was in Nevada. Judge Mary Kay Holthus was attacked in her own courtroom during a sentencing hearing. And the video is, just stunning. But you have a guy who is being told that he's not gonna get a bond. He's been accused, by the way. He wasn't found guilty yet. But apparently he was been accused of beating up his girlfriend. And during the court hearing today, some say it's a sentencing hearing, others say it was just a hearing on bond. But you had this guy just fly through the air and attack the judge. I'm telling you, people are losing it in this country. They're just absolutely losing it. And I fear it's going to get worse. 806-680-2790. You can send in your thoughts on the text line, 806-680-2790. Joe Biden losing ground with young voters. That's from the Washington Examiner. Biden experiencing a decline in support from key demographics going into the election year. A new USA Today Suffolk poll released this week shows the former president, Donald Trump, leading Biden by 2 percentage points overall. Among Hispanic voters, Trump is at 39% compared to Biden at 34%. Uh-oh. Biden holds the lead at 63% among black voters. That's around 24 points less than he did back in 2020. 1 out of every 5 black voters surveyed said they would support a third-party candidate in November. That's not good for Joe. The election in 2020 had the, quote, largest voter turnout of the 21st century. Sure it did. Young voters were a key group that helped deliver Biden to the White House in the last presidential election. The turnout among voters under 35 was 57%, an increase of about 8% from the same group in 2016. However, the president is seeing a drop-off in that age group as Trump holds a 37% support among voters under the age of 35 compared to Biden's 33%. So again, among younger voters, Trump is leading among younger voters. Not by a huge amount, but by a few percentage points. And then among Hispanics, Trump is leading. Now again, polls, you can't always buy into them. But if you're Trump, this is good news. If you're Trump, this is the news that you want to see. And then when you also pair that with the news that black voters are looking at a third-party candidate, it's even better for Trump. This is, again, why I still think there's a very real chance that Joe Biden doesn't get the nomination, that Joe Biden just steps aside, and that someone like Gavin Newsom comes in to save the day for the Democrats. Sure, it could be Michelle Obama, but I think it's more likely to be someone like a Gavin Newsom that jumps into this thing. Again, when you're looking at major losses in demographics that should be going for you by just leaps and bounds, it's got to worry the Democrats. It's got to worry the Democrat base. It's got to worry the establishment that Joe is not doing well, and they still have time. Not a huge window, but they still have time to get somebody else in there, and you know it's being kicked around somewhere. It has to be. The biggest threat towards Donald Trump right now is Joe Biden not getting the nomination and the Democrats passing it off to someone like Gavin Newsom. That's the biggest threat towards Donald Trump as of today, in my opinion. 806-680-2790. When we come back, we'll get you caught up to date with what's going to be happening at the Gun and Blade Show, and we'll also have a few other topics to wrap up tonight's show.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton.
Coming up on the Thursday edition of the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show, 11 days out from the Iowa caucuses, we'll look at the latest poll numbers and who's surging, who's dropping, what the main narratives are. Plus, Biden is still the Democrat nominee. What do the numbers tell us about the likelihood of this continuing to be the case? We will break down that and much more on the Clay Travis and Buck Sexton Show.
Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, tomorrow morning at 11.
To battle is to fight, to struggle, to overcome. And ultimately for the Marine Corps, it means to win. There is no alternative. It's not just a statement of intent. It's a promise to our nation. A promise kept for more than 2 centuries. A promise of the Marines.
Deal. Join me for America's First News weekday mornings at 5 on News Talk 95.1 FM and 790 AM KFYO.
Let's see. Texture on the text line saying Newsom's delusional. No, he's not. He's not delusional. He knows exactly what he's doing. And don't discount. Listen, if people will buy into what Joe is selling, and they did, not as many are buying into it now, but they bought into what Joe was selling, they'll look at someone as slick as Gavin Newsom. And Gavin Newsom has no problem looking at the camera, smiling, and stabbing you in the back. He's got no problem doing that. He's got no problem lying to you while smiling right at the camera. And don't discount the idea that people will like someone who is younger and someone who can say, you know what? Listen, this economy's not working for everybody. I've got some fresh ideas. Now, listen, Gavin Newsom would be a disaster for this country. But don't discount the idea that there are going to be people out there looking for an alternative and very happy if Gavin Newsom steps in and it's not Joe. Let's switch gears. Talk about the Gun and Blade Show. It's coming up here in Lubbock, Texas on Saturday and Sunday, and we've got Kim Sansom joining us to preview the Gun and Blade Show that's going to be happening. Kim, how are you this evening? Oh, do we have Kim? There we go. Now we got Kim. Hey, Kim, are you there?
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Real technology.
Hey, you know what? Technology works great until it doesn't, and we've all been there. Hey, tell us a little bit. Obviously, Gun and Blade Show, you're going to find just a ton of different vendors, so many vendors that are going to be out there. How many are y'all expecting this weekend?
This will probably be the fullest show that we've had in the last couple of years.
Wow.
So we're really excited about that. Got a few new vendors with some new products, and then, of course, we have some of our good old vendors that have been around a while. But, you know, always keep in mind these vendors change merchandise, the gun vendors buy, sell, and trade, you know, all through the different times between shows. So,
yeah,
you know, they have different stuff, too.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And, you know, it's something where, you know, depending on when you go, you may be in looking for something different. One year you may be, you know, looking for a hunting rifle. The next time you may be looking for a new concealed carry pistol. It's always changing, and you're always going to find new and different things out at the Gun and Blade Show.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's also a good place to come and buy gold and silver. A lot of people don't think about that, but, you know, we are into our survival and just thinking about our futures and all that stuff with stuff that is carried at the show. So it's a good place to come and do that, too. Yeah, no, that's great. If folks are interested in doing a little trading at the Gun and Blade Show, what process do they need to go through when they get there? Of course, we always welcome that. Always make sure your firearm is unloaded. We do have security at the door to double check and strap your firearms. Safety is number one. So we just ask that, you know, you practice the utmost safety practices that you know. Yeah, absolutely. Tell folks what the hours are going to be and where the Gun and Blade Show is going to be located at. We'll be at the Lubbock Civic Center, 1501 McDavis Lane. We're open Saturday 9 to 5, Sunday 10 to 5. Admission is $8 for adults. Kids 5 to 12 are $1. And we are excited to say that our Hunter Ed course is full. So if you did not get your kids signed up for that, they will be back in April, and you can get them in that class.
Yeah, that filled up fast this go around. That's great news.
It did.
Yeah, that's great.
Did.
Kim, thanks for joining us today. We'll talk to you again on Friday.
Sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. That's Kim Sansom with the Silver Spur Trade Show's Gun and Blade Show. And for those of you in Lubbock, we'll actually be broadcasting from the Gun and Blade Show on Saturday, 2 to 4 p.m. Why don't you come on out, say hello. We'll have a microphone set up if you want to sound off and say hello and talk about any of the issues that are out there. Or maybe you just want to tell us what you bought while you're at the Gun and Blade Show. That's fine. You can do that as well. But we'll be out there 2 to 4 p.m. having a great time at the Gun and Blade Show on Saturday out at the Lubbock Memorial Civic Center. Tomorrow we're hoping to get more into the Epstein list as it's names are starting to come out. The list names have been released, and let's see, the first of 187 names released on January 3rd. Let's see. Bombshell new Jeffrey Epstein documents further revealed the pedophile's relationship with Bill Clinton and suggested that Ghislaine Maxwell may have had a relationship with Clinton's aide. Maxwell, who is currently serving 20 years in prison for sex trafficking, was questioned under oath about her relationship with the pedophile Jeffrey Epstein and his associates. On Wednesday, a 946-page trove of documents from that case filed by Epstein victim Virginia Griffey was unsealed with details including how Epstein emailed Maxwell to insist that Stephen Hawking did not participate in an underage orgy on his Caribbean island back in 2006. So I'm sure we will get more details throughout the evening on this list. And we'll have that and get your reaction to it tomorrow. Follow me on social media at Chat HD Radio. Stay safe, stay healthy. God bless you all. We'll see you back here tomorrow at 5 p.m.
The Chad Hasty Show, a presentation of the Texas Town Square Media Network. The views and opinions expressed during the Chad Hasty Show are not necessarily the views of this station staff, management, advertisers, or Town Square Media.